Hello, this is Mark from tradinginformed.com. Welcome to this video, how to calculate the SuperTrend indicator in Excel. Now, before I start talking about the SuperTrend indicator, I would like to briefly mention that my new ebook course, How to Backtest a Trading Strategy in Excel, is now available in the Amazon Kindle bookstore. For those of you who are interested in programming indicators in Excel and then using those indicators to build backtest models, whether long only or long short, and then to use those models to optimize a trading strategy, then there is a link available on the screen at the moment for more information about this course. Okay, so looking at the SuperTrend, we've got an example on the screen at the moment. The most distinguishing feature about the SuperTrend, we can see here starting from the left, is that when the price is in a downtrend, the SuperTrend indicator is a red line above the price action. And when the trend changes direction, the SuperTrend indicator flips to below the price action and turns green. This is a very nice indicator for those of you who like trading along with the trend, and it is a useful way when building models and automatic trading to identify the trend. But how do we calculate it? Okay, I'm going to use the spreadsheet from the ebook course. You can use this on any historic data, on any market or any time frame. The first thing we need to do to calculate the SuperTrend is to calculate the ATR, or the average true range. I have done a previous video showing how to calculate the ATR, and there is a link on the screen if you're interested. Okay, the second thing we're going to do to calculate the SuperTrend is to do our upper band basic calculation on our lower band basic calculation. SuperTrend is made up of an upper band and a lower band, and the basic calculation for the upper band is quite simple. Take the high plus the low and divide it by 2, and we get an average price. And then to this we add a multiplier that I'm going to put here, and we use F4 to make this an absolute reference cell, and then we multiply this by the ATR. Okay, the multiple that we're going to use for both here is 2. This is one of the two variables in the SuperTrend indicator. The other one is the length of the ATR. So for the lower band, we calculated this in the same way. We calculate our average price of the high plus the low divided by 2, and then we take this and we subtract from it a multiplier, absolute reference F4 times our ATR. Then we have our basic calculation for the upper band and the lower band. The next two columns are actually going to be our upper band and our lower band. The reason we can't use the basic calculation, we can see just by having another look at the model. And the other distinguishing thing is that once we're in an uptrend, once we have turned green, price, or the indicator rather, only moves in the direction of the price of the trend, and that's upwards in this case and downwards in this case. So we're going to tell Excel how to account for this by using an if statement, and which is to say that if the upper band is lower than the previous period, and we use this basic calculation, but if not, then use the previous period. And it's the same for the lower band. Again, if our lower band basic is greater than the previous period, then use that value, but if not, then use the previous period's value. Okay, we're almost there now with our upper and our lower bands, but we also need to account for the fact that these bands are not visible all the time, and we don't want it to do exactly the same thing when the upper band, when we're in an uptrend, the upper band, we always want it to calculate the basic value, the basic calculation. So we're going to do this by using an OR statement. I'll put it in at the front here. We're going to define it by saying that if the previous period's close was greater than the previous period's upper band, then always use the basic calculation. And the same here, I'm going to put in an if or, comma, our close in the previous period this time was less than the previous period, then always use the lower band basic calculation. Just copy these down to a few rows. So now we have our correct upper band and our lower bands. What we need to do now is tell Excel when to use the upper band and when to use the lower band. In other words, so we've got the actual SuperTrend indicator. And we're going to do this again by using an if statement. We're going to use a series of 4 if and statements to account for all the possible scenarios. So we're going to start out by saying if and our previous period SuperTrend was equal to our upper band and our current close is lower than our upper band, in brackets, and take that upper band. We're still in a downtrend. If false, if and, our SuperTrend previous period again equals our upper band, but this time our closing price is greater than our upper band, in brackets, then we have to switch to lower band. Again, if and. This time we're going to look at if we're in an uptrend, our SuperTrend equals the lower band. Then look for whether the close is greater than a lower band. If so, then use that lower band. Again, if and, final time this time, if our SuperTrend equals our lower band and our close is less than our lower band, then switch to using the upper band. If not, then do nothing. Okay, so there we have the SuperTrend indicator. Again, we can just highlight these cells, click on this square at the bottom right hand corner and copy these down. The next video I'm going to do in this sequence will show how we can use the SuperTrend indicator to create a trading strategy, and then we'll backtest this trading strategy. For more information about trading and using Excel to backtest trading strategies, please go to www.tradinformed.com.